What's the story about how did you come out of poverty or being broke?
Experience 1. I was homeless, bouncing from shelter to shelter. Hustling, running weed and pills for people to scrape together a session at the end of the day. One day my cousin took me with him to a place called Labor Ready. It's just a place where construction companies, etc., pick up a day laborer, and at the end of the day you go back to the office and they cut you a check for the day's work. Well, when I got to that job site, the other punks I was working with from the agency were lazy and slow and complaining all day, barely doing anything. It pissed me off. We were hired to work. So, I worked my absolute guts out. We were digging mud out of the basement of an abandoned farmhouse that was being restored. The boss came during the day and saw me carrying 2 steel 5-gallon pails filled to the top with mud up the stairs and out the back door constantly, while the other 2 were barely filling 1 2-gallon drywall mud pail. He took me aside and said, "You're not going back to the agency tomorrow, you're hired." From there I continued to work my guts out for him and eventually was promoted from laborer to a carpenter's apprentice. I learned a few trades there since they were a general contractor. From there I moved on to other companies and continued learning new trades. Today I'm a jack of all trades, making good pay. I do everything. Windows and doors, flooring, brick and concrete repair, drywall, mud and tape, tile, siding and aluminum, you name it. I've got my own brand new van, fully kitted out with all the best tools I could possibly need to do any job. And my work is appreciated because I am meticulous and hardworking. And that's how I went from pinching out of weed bags and sleeping at a mission to owning a house and vehicles with a good job. Experience 2. Live like I'm still paycheck to paycheck. This is the biggest mistake that far too many people make, just because you, the universal you, not you specifically, get that $4,000 salary raise or took a disloyalty bonus to go to another company for an additional $10,000 on your salary does not mean that you need to move into a bigger house or that you need to buy a more expensive car. I'm certainly not saying that you can't enjoy the fruits of your labor. Sure, take yourself/loved ones out to a nice dinner or maybe buy that nice pair of shoes you've been eyeing for the last year, but if you're constantly raising your recurring costs, then you'll also always be living paycheck to paycheck. To me, the objective is not to just make the numbers bigger while retaining the same, or greater, financial risk. The objective is to reach a point where you no longer worry about money. Edit. Yes, obviously improve your life if you have the means to, but don't engage in frivolous lifestyle inflation where you're just spending money for the sake of spending it because you have it. If a guy makes $12,000 a year door dashing and lands himself in a $25,000 job, he can finally pay for the transmission repairs to his Civic, but he'd be doing himself a disservice by running out and replacing the whole car with a brand new Mercedes. Experience 3. Sacrificed comfort and focused on getting the bare minimum of what I needed and how to get more money. I ate ramen and bread, slept outside, and took a shower when I could. I got a job at Walmart, then Ross, the clothing store. Found a cheap motel to stay at with my girlfriend and we scrimped and saved. But $33 a night on a $50 a day salary eats at you and it was impossible to save. Like it would have been years before I could have afforded just a car to make sure I got to work on time. So, I moved into my father's place and could save up for a car. They paid for my TESOL, and I spent a lifetime of miles from flying between my mother and father to get a ticket to Poland, sold the car, and found myself eating potatoes in Polska till I got a job teaching English. Then the gold, PLN, was steady. The moral of this story is that poverty is a scary freaking thing and it's really hard to get out of it without friends and family. There's no easy way out and the longer you're there the deeper the holes get, especially if you start borrowing money. I still like to travel on nothing sometimes though. Hitchhike, couch surf, and eat nothing but bread for months. Experience 4. Being at the right place, at the right time, talking to the right people. You can be the most talented person in the world, but if you don't know how to play the social game and have a lot of luck, it sadly isn't going to happen. Experience 5. I grew up with substance addicted or alcoholic parents. I've worked every day since I was 16 and stayed far away from my family. My wife and kids are my rock and keep me working hard and pushing to be better. Pro tip: leave your small town and never look back. Take control and grab life by the horns. Experience 6. Read, learned, exercised, went to night school, got a GED, went to university, got a loan for that, learned to live on beans and rice for 6 years, got a contract job in my industry, worked, studied, learned, took every minute of work that came my way. Gained the trust of the middle-class people around me, made them believe I wasn't some white trash loser, read, learned, exercised, saved up $10,000, started my own business, struggled for years, failed many times, and finally got here. I am 52 and still working 6 days a week, 12 hours a day. Sad but true. No easy options for me, unfortunately. Experience 7. I went back to school at 24 to get a degree in computer science, got an internship at a big tech company, and converted it to a full-time offer at the end of the internship. Now I make insane money. I worked full-time with a lot of mandatory overtime during the entire period I was in college. It was brutal but ended up being worth it. Experience 8. Might sound harsh, but I dropped the group of people I was hanging with. They all had no aspirations or drive to do anything or get out of the small town we grew up in. I knew that if I stayed in that circle of people, I wouldn't go or do anything with my life. That was 8 years ago now. I got a college degree, have my own house, and make $120,000 a year. Everyone back at home that I left still isn't doing anything. Experience 9. Good scholarship to a private university, got the first major related job by being able to talk to PPL, not necessarily skill. Made a bunch of connections. Those connections got me references and doors open to other better paying jobs. Never burn bridges. Words are powerful, and even when you think no one is listening. Also, a lot of freaking luck. Experience 10. As a former banker and financial advisor, the best advice is to have an actual plan. I've seen so many people, even ones who make great money, who are always totally broke and can never achieve their goals because they have never taken the time to sit down and formulate a realistic plan to get there. They just have a dream and go through life always assuming it will happen eventually. My wife and I set a goal to be mostly retired and live on our sailboat by 40. She used to roll her eyes at me when I pulled out my notebook every month or two and completely reevaluated every step in getting there. Well, I'm sitting here typing this from my boat on the way to the Caribbean at 39. Experience 11. I got lucky. I liked computers, and I could study for a vocational degree in my country, which was free at the time. Then my family kicked me out, so I had to move to a big city to get low pay, entry, 1,000 hours job, completely alone. There were zero opportunities or support for me. I was broke, sharing rooms and flats with interesting people. Then it turns out computers are a field with a lot of workers needed, so in a big city your skills are in demand, and I got better paid progressively. Then I studied English, and that opened international opportunities so I could work in a better field, maybe remotely. Then I opened my own small company, and I don't have to put up with asshole bosses. Experience 12. I'm a child of poor immigrants. I just happen to love science and especially mathematics. I obsessively studied it because it was cool. Enrolled in a community college because I wanted to learn more before getting a grown-up job. One thing led to another, and now I'm a faculty professor at a university. I think people should choose something interesting and focus on doing it well, learning, and developing as a person for a few years. After a few years, then decide if you want to continue or not. If not, then look for ways to use your new skills to take a step in a different direction. Working hard and having a growth mindset is huge. But I have to acknowledge that I was super lucky that I just happened to love mathematics. Mathematics is one of those things that everyone needs yet everyone refuses to learn, so I have a lot of opportunities. Experience 13. One phone call. Short version, I was studying programming and got pretty good at some niche stuff that was in demand. I was pretty worried or afraid of the unknown, but my girlfriend was suddenly pregnant, and she hit me with "it's now or never to get off your ass," and I took it to heart. I finally put my resume out and applied to a few jobs. Got a call a week later. Here's the cool part. At the time I was making about $25,000 per year. The person on the phone offered me $70. But I'd have to move 6 hours away and be able to start within 7 days. I took it. I was so excited to be making $70,000. Before the call ended, the recruiter said, "Well, I'm going to put you down for $80. I have some wiggle room I left in to negotiate, and I also get a little extra the more you make." I said, "That sounds great." Then as she's closing the call, she says she's got me down to start in 7 days at $80 an hour. See you then. The reality is I took the job happy at $70,000, but she meant per hour. She then upgraded me to $80 an hour without me asking, and before the call was done, I was making $165,000 per year on a job that I had accepted for $70,000. By the end of the year, I had made $275,000 with the overtime, basically 10x my income, all from that one call. Experience 14. My mom worked 3 jobs to put me through university. I worked a job at near full-time hours. If I wasn't at university, I was at work. If I wasn't at work or university, I was studying. If I wasn't doing any of those things, I was sleeping. Literally had no social life. After university, I got an entry-level job in my field, marketing, and still worked a second job on top of that so I could make ends meet. Eventually, I moved into the marketing team at a big corporate retailer and worked up from there. I didn't quit my second job until I started making over $80,000 per year. 3 years later, I now earn $135,000 per year at the same company and love it. I also own an investment property with my brother and SIL, share, a motorbike, and was just able to purchase a new vehicle in December last year. I have always gotten the hand-me-down cars from family members. It was not easy. It was freaking hard. I missed out on so much in my late teens and early 20s to make sure I could get ahead. There were times that I had to ask mom and dad for help here and there, and at the same time, they were just getting their own businesses off the ground. I did all of what they told me not to do, was first in the office, last to leave. Always said yes to extra work even though there were times I thought I could be taken advantage of, etc., and it paid off big time. I have never been on major overseas holidays, Europe, America, etc., and instead used that money for my down payment on my investment property. I am also open and honest about the fact I wouldn't have been able to afford the investment property without my brother and SIL going halves with me, and I'm forever grateful for that. The sacrifices I made helped me sleep at night because I now know I'll never live paycheck to paycheck ever again. Experience 15. Oh, this actually seems applicable to me. I was homeless at 16, a substance addict and all that jazz. On the street for about 9 months, with nothing to my name except an old moped, which I siphoned fuel from other vehicles to top my bike up. The engine kept me warm at night. It took a long time to get into housing. I would go to the council office every single day and ask about the status. I did this for months. I was eventually put into a foyer, where other delinquents like me were living. After I got a roof over my head, I started looking for education. Since I was receiving dole money, a job wasn't something I was looking for. I got lucky and scored a scholarship to a music college. From there, it was just on the up. I was rehoused to a YMCA, worst experience of my life. I was living next door to a kid who was just released from prison on tag. He would be banging at my door throughout the night trying to get in. He and his cronies also jumped me while I was out nearby and sent me to the hospital. I do not recommend the YMCA. After which, I was put into shared flat housing. Once college started, I managed to share a flat with a college friend. He was working at the local shop and got me a job. So, I was working part-time and in college, earning enough money to get me by, pot noodles for dinner sort of thing. Once college finished, I left the city and went to live with some family elsewhere. Now that I had a bit of education, didn't look like a hobo anymore, and had some work experience, I managed to land a full-time job. And it just went on from there. The job was crap, my boss was crap, and the money was barely minimum wage, but it got me by until I met my, now, wife online and moved country and started my career from scratch. Now I'm living comfortably, recently bought a new car outright after saving up. It was a long road, getting from there to here. But I wouldn't change it now that I know where I would end up. Experience 16. We were low middle class, father was a school teacher and mother a homemaker. We were not poor. We did not have many comforts taken for granted now, no electricity, no running water, and no modern toilets in the house, which was rented. We slept on the floor with some thin reed mats and bed sheets providing some cushion. We ate simple food, whether that was nutritious or not, had some simple clothes, a few pairs tailored each year coinciding with the festivals, went barefoot many times, because the footwear did not last long and could not be replaced as often as needed. Went to government schools because they were free, walked to the school and back, and went to government doctor or a semi-qualified private practitioner when sick. We first came to a big city and lived in a rented house that had the normal facilities, electricity, running, tap, water, and toilets that could be flushed. I was 14 years by then. It felt good, and listening to the radio in the house was real fun. There was no TV at that time, 1962. That came much later. Sometime in 1978 or 1979 in my case, a black and white TV, but that was a deluxe model. With good picture and sound. Similarly, fridge also came around that time. I was already well employed by then and added these because I got married in 1978 and wanted to keep my wife happy. She came from a well-to-do family and was used to these things, as also dining tables, proper beds, mattresses, etc. However, my simple childhood stayed with me and enabled me to live simply even amid a fairly good salary. Even now I can and do lead a simple life, though I can afford much more expensive things. My children and their children are more used to better living conditions and will not be able to live like ascetics.
We hope you enjoyed listening to today's stories. If you want to see more stories, check out these videos or check the links in the description for more videos. And don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. And ring that notification bell.